Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show right here on Clemson Football at the Voice of College Football. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm, as always, your host, Tiger Paul Craven. Jordan Bowman will be joining us here momentarily tonight. A little bit of an abbreviated show for you guys tonight. I'm feeling a bit under the weather, so I'm not going to stay on very long, but thought it was important to come on and have a show anyway. Got a ton to talk about. Obviously, Wednesday was the big weigh-in day for Clemson Tiger football. All the guys came in, got weighed in. We got to see where their body composition is and how they kind of changed going through summer workouts and all that kind of stuff. And then, we get into yesterday, which was Thursday, in the first fall practice. Media got to be there for a short stint of that practice and got to get some intel thoughts and how the team looked and who's leading drills and who's being vocal out there and things like that. So we'll get into that. And we also got to hear from Dabo Sweeney. We got to hear from some of the players and what their thoughts are heading out of summer into fall camp and where they feel this team is at and the work that they've put in so far this summer. So we'll talk about all of that and more here in a couple minutes. But before we get into tonight's show, thank you guys so much for showing up. I got 12 people in the live chat right now. Go ahead and get your comments in the comment section. Hit that like button while you're in here. Those likes really help us out on these live videos. And we're constantly trying to grow the channel as we're heading into the season, guys. Please bring your friends, your family, anybody that you know that enjoys college football content here on YouTube. Bring them to the channel and let them know that, this is a good source of college football content for you guys. But before we get into tonight's show, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. Also, hit that like button. And then if you would like to support what me and Jordan do here on the All In Show, the Super Chat feature is available as well. And before we get into anything else, I'm going to get into the comment section. And thank you guys for coming in here and commenting already. Excuse me if I have to mute my mic a couple times. I got this nasty cough and, like I said, feeling a bit under the weather tonight, but we're going to get it rolling regardless. We got Black Caucus in here first. Heck yeah, we made it to Fridays. Yes, we did. We made it to Friday. Fall camp has officially started. Football season is right around the corner. It's always exciting time to be a college football fan right now, especially as we turn the page to the month of August. Jackson Johnson in here, one of our moderators, always in here plugging things that we need plugged, like the Amazon link. Guys, don't forget the Amazon link in the description of the video. Anytime you shop on Amazon, if you just simply paste that into your Amazon order, it helps out the Voice of College Football, and that is greatly appreciated. John Sarin, another one of our regulars and a great moderator of ours, he said he can almost smell college football. I know. I'm with you. It's so close. It is so close. We can almost smell it, taste it. There's a hint of college football in the air, if you will. Ben Villalobos is in here on vacation, but had to make it into the show. I appreciate you, man. That says a lot. You being on vacation and still finding a way to tune into the show. Thank you very much for all of your support. Tiggs is in here. Tiggs with the crazy prediction, Clemson 65, UGA 7. One can only hope. That may completely implode the college football community if that happens, Tiggs. But excuse me, I would not be sad if it did. Will, our resident Notre Dame fan, big supporter of the channel and the show. Thanks for showing up, Will. Appreciate you. Chase Thompson. Yes, Chase, believe it or not, it is Friday already. It is Friday already. Let's see. Who else? All right, I'm back. Sorry, guys, had to mute my mic there for a second. All right, let's see who else we got in here. Tig says Dabo got challenged on the hardwood. Yeah, by the Syracuse coach. Um, that would be a fun matchup to watch. I hope they make it happen. Um, Chase Thompson says Alfred Commitment Day. Yes, yes, it is. All right, I think that's everybody in here right now. Um, so we're going to go ahead and kick off the show, and I'll be interacting with you guys in the comment section. We'll do a little bit differently tonight. Jordan is in the middle of traveling from work right now, and his audio is being a little weird, so he can't be on right at this moment. So we'll just keep it with me and you guys. We'll talk a little fall camp. We'll talk a little weigh-ins. I'll go through the list of guys and some of the standout guys as far as weigh-ins, some of the guys of note that kind of stood out from a body composition standpoint and kind of where they were versus where they weighed in this past Wednesday. So TJ Moore, for one, obviously big-time freshman wide receiver. Haven't seen him on campus to this point. Obviously got the first time. Some media members got to see him practice on Thursday. Obviously some good returns out of him, but he weighed in at 198 pounds. Previously, he was 190. Cade Klubnik up to 210 from 205. So making some good progress with him there. TJ Parker, he's up to 264 from 255. Let's see. Tyler Brown, around the same weight. He weighed in at 181, so just 1 pound above what he was already listed on the roster previously. Phil Maffa dropped a couple pounds down to 228 from 230. Adam Randall up to 231, so a bit bigger from 225 where he was listed before. Jake Brenningstool up to 243. Dabo Sweeney talked a little bit about Jake Brenningstool and his time with the media and talked about his body composition and how he's really just coming to his own, and he's excited to see what he's going to be able to put on the field this year, especially with that big frame that he's really started to fill out. It's going to be exciting to see what he's able to do with that added weight. John Sarian said, Randall is said to be all muscle. Yes, absolutely. 231 pounds. I mean, he's going to be a haul to deal with on that outside should he be able to stay healthy. Excuse me, guys. All right. Let's go continue on here. Jaden Lucas, another guy that's been plagued by injury, unfortunately. Just haven't seen him on the field as much as we would like to in past seasons. But he's down to 196 from 200, previously listed. Obviously, he's a guy that can definitely contribute to this team and be a big piece of that defensive backfield if he can stay healthy and look forward to all these guys really staying healthy. Dabo was actually asked, about I think he was specifically asked about Walker Parks and his injury history and how much that he had gone through, and he answered, excuse me, got somewhat like emotional about some of these guys and the trials that they have gone through with different injuries and back-to-back injuries and just constantly dealing with things. A guy like Troy Stellato comes to mind. Walker Parks comes to mind. Adam Randall comes to mind. Like guys like that have just been plagued by injury and saying that he was truly praying for his team and hoping that these guys would be able to put it all together this season and truly stay healthy as a group, as a unit, as a cohesive team. So let's hope that will be one of the hallmark calling cards for this Clemson team this season, is just being able to stay healthy, which is something Clemson hasn't been able to say as a whole team-wise in quite some time, unfortunately. So Troy Stellato, another guy that's been plagued by injury. He's down to 185, previously 190. Peter Woods, a lot of talk about Peter Woods this season and what weight he would be carrying coming into this season, and he weighed in at 319. Some people expected him to be a little bit less than that previously. I think he was, let's see, where was he? 315 before. Excuse me. Now he's up to 319. And, I think one of the key things that Dabo talked about specifically with Peter Woods was just body composition. And with a lot of these guys, it's body composition. He said he's extremely lean. He can run. He can make all the plays. He can play literally every position on the defensive line, which I think is really important because I think at any given time this season he will be asked to play every position along that defensive line at some point in time during the season. So I think it's important that he still kept some of his size and some of his bulk to be able to play inside when he needs to and still be effective in that short run game, but also lean and quick enough to where he can still be a weapon on the outside and he can hold, contain, and he can, make the plays and have the athletic ability to move on the outside like he would need to be at that defensive end position. It's a really tough position to be in for Peter Woods. But, according to Dabo, according to a lot of the coaching staff, he has a unique ability to be able to hold that and have the body and the strength to work inside, and then the speed and the athleticism to also work on the outside. So that's a lot easier said than done. But it looks to be that he held up his size quite a bit and that, he's got his body composition in a place. I mean, Dabo said that, he's leaner than some guys that are 280. So he's got his body composition in a place to where he's going to be able to, really affect the game all along that defensive line. And that's going to be very important for the Tigers going forward. He's going to be one of the key cogs in the wheel as far as this defense goes and how effective and dominant they are up front. He's going to be one of those leaders along with TJ Parker, right? So can't wait to see these guys just get in there and just really start performing and start bringing some of those younger guys along. A Cade Denhoff, an AJ Hoffler, a Jaheim Lawson. Bring some of those young guys along with them and get them to grow and get them to step up into those secondary roles, into those roles where we're going to need that depth as the season goes on because, as you guys know, we move into a 12-team playoff. And what that means is, if you play well throughout the season and you win the games you're supposed to win and, you go on and win the ACC championship game and you're in the 12-team playoff, you can play well into, January. You can play up to, I think, 17 games now if you go to the final game. So, I mean, you got to prepare for a really long season, and part of preparation for that is you have to build quality depth. And if you're not building the quality depth, those first guys that run out there, yes, it's very important that they are talented and that they can, produce at a very high level. But those guys that run out there after them are just as important, if not more important, as the season goes on, to give those guys breathers, to make sure that they're not overexerting themselves and causing injury because they're playing every single snap of every single game, right? That's just not a sustainable way to go through a football season. It's too physical of a sport to take that many snaps. Let me get through this list, and then I'll get to your guys' comments. Give me a couple more minutes. I'm going to get through this weigh-in list, and then I'll get to your guys' comments before we move on to the next topic. Excuse me, guys. All right, moving right along. Olsen Pat Henry stayed right around the same as he was before. Brian Wesco, he is up to about 182. So he goes from 170 to 182. I mean, the guy, we obviously saw what he did in the spring game. We saw what he was able to do as far as, his ability to catch the ball and move in open space, his ability to make acrobatic catches. Obviously, he picked up the offense very well from a mental standpoint. Obviously, everybody knew coming in that Brian Wesco would need to put on a little bit of weight and bulk up a bit, and he's already done that. Put on 12 pounds already in his first offseason. So look for big things out of Brian Wesco Jr. Cade Klubnik talked about Brian Wesco at the ACC Media Days, talked about how much chemistry that he's built with Brian Wesco this season and how excited he is to see him out on the field this year making plays for the Tigers. I think Jordan's popped in for us here. Let me see if we can get him on here. Hey, Jordan, how you doing, man?
Yeah, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. And this has been a wonderful day.
Yeah, it's all good.
Where are we at? What did I miss?
I'm still going through the weigh-in list right now. Just kind of talking through some of the guys. I'm just scrolling the list and kind of naming out guys that catch my eye. Really, we've talked about Antonio Williams. We've talked about T.J. Moore, T.J. Parker went from 155 to 264. Let's see. Who else did we talk? We talked about Adam Randall. Jaden Lucas, Olsen Pat Henry, Brian Wesco. I was just talking about Brian Wesco when you popped on. So that's who we've talked about so far.
Yeah, well, I mean, you hit on Brian Wesco. I mean, what jumps out to you is, when he came in as a early enrollee, that was always the biggest thing was his size. And, he knew the playmaking ability was there. We saw it throughout the spring, but it was like we knew that if he was going to be an actual contributor for Clemson this year, he was going to have to, hit that weight room. And I think he's up to 188 now. Came in like below 170. I believe. So, I mean, I think you're seeing, that's pretty incredible growth and, great work by the strength staff. But it's massive for his prospects as far as being an early contributor. And, I was very pleased to hear that. I'm really pleased with the wide receiver room in general. I think they showed a lot of promise. Just based off of the gains and just physically, we'll talk about it, what the kind of the standouts from day one of camp. But the receivers, like, they look the part, and it's not just like, they're eating a lot, but they're not putting on good weight. No, they're bulking up and they look really physically impressive. And having Brian Wesco in that conversation is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge deal. And that's one of the things that I've kind of been harping on before you hopped on, Jordan, was, the kind of everybody really talked about it, but Dabo talked about it as well, talking about just the body composition standpoint and getting your body in a place where, it's mass, you got the proper mass, but the muscle and you're leaned out enough to where you can be athletic. So I think it's obvious that the Clemson nutrition staff and the players have bought in to the program that they have going on, and everybody's trying to get better from that standpoint. And it's pretty clear with some of these weigh-in results. So we'll continue to go down the list. I'll highlight some standouts. Defensive end Jaheim Lawson went from 240 to 251. So that's a huge deal for him. Obviously, Jaheim Lawson came in kind of a leaner, smaller guy, a guy that you could really use in the pass rushing game. He's definitely a pass rushing specialist. That's kind of his strength. But getting his body to a point where he can compete on those other downs, on those run downs, where he's keeping contained and things like that is important. And he's definitely taken a big step this offseason in making that happen. So shout out to him for getting his body in a better place. Ronan Hannafin puts on 5 pounds up to 215. Let's see. Wade Woodaz goes from 230 to 235. Excuse me. I'm trying not to cough here, guys. Um, let's see. I'm just scrolling down the list. Jay Haynes. Wow, that's a big jump. It goes from 185 to 200. So obviously, that one stands out quite a bit. Get Jordan's thoughts on Jay Haynes. Well, what do you think about that jump from Jay Haynes all the way up to 200 pounds?
Yeah, is my camera on? Like, I'm seeing nothing but a black screen on my screen.
I see a black screen, but we can hear you fine.
Okay, all right, whatever. At this point, my phone is not wanting to cooperate with me. But no, like I think it's a massive deal. I mean, it's kind of similar to a little bit similar to Brian Westco in that we knew like he gives a boost of explosiveness and athleticism. Um, And, Jay Haynes, he was a guy that Dabo has talked about throughout the offseason as a guy that they wanted to get on the field last year at points, but they couldn't trust him to stay healthy. And, he dealt with different injuries throughout the year. And so him bulking up and getting bigger was a massive thing for the running back room. Because, if he's going to, step into a bigger role, whether it's, whether he's RB2 or is a 2A, 2B type situation with him and Adams. I don't know. But, he's a guy that they clearly want to get on the field. And so, him getting up to 200 pounds and just being sturdier is big. The hope is that he's gained that weight, but he's also kept the explosiveness because he does.
Right.
He was kind of an unknown commodity when he signed. But, when you go back and watch his tape, back in Alabama, he was a really, really explosive playmaker for his high school. It was a small, like 2A school, but he really showed out, and that was kind of the draw and kind of why Clemson liked him as a late take. And he just needs to be able to stay healthy to bring that to this offense, because if he does, then I'm pretty high on what he can bring to the table this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's just an eye-popping number. I mean, 15 pounds over an off-season, that's pretty impressive. But you would hope that obviously he put the weight on the right way, and he's good from a body composition standpoint where he needs to be. And the hope is with a guy like Jay Haynes that he didn't lose that explosive step, because that's really what Clemson needs out of him, right? When you got a guy like Phil Moffitt that's a big bruiser type of back. Obviously, I'm not saying Phil Moffitt's not athletic. He obviously is. Phil Moffitt can do anything out of the backfield that you need him to do. He can run, he can catch, he can split out wide if you need him to. He's the total package when it comes to an RB1. But to have that change of pace guy, a guy with a bit more speed, a bit more explosiveness, the guy you would peg most often would be a Jay Haynes. But unfortunately for him, he's just not been able to stay healthy. Even this spring, he wasn't able to stay healthy. So because of that, you got to kind of look and, is Amume, is he going to step up? Is it going to be Keith Adams Jr.? Is it going to be, who's going to step into that kind of RB2 role and, be the guy behind Phil Moffitt? And you look to Jay Haynes to have it. And obviously he has changed his body. We'll see if he has maintained that explosiveness. And I think that'll be important going forward, obviously. Continuing to go down the list quickly so we can move on. I'm just looking for people that kind of pop out from a number standpoint.
Have we talked about Ashton Hampton? He was a guy that I think, coming in, I was really high on him as a recruit, and him coming in at 200 pounds was really eye-opening. I mean, I think he's a guy that potentially is more ready to play than even, maybe the coaching staff was expecting. He's a guy that has a lot of positional versatility. I think he's going to play a lot of nickel in his time at Clemson. And, I think he's a guy you could get on the field in certain situations. And, just having him at that weight is a big deal. And I mean, they've talked about kind of how impressive he is, and he's come in and been really, really, he's hit the ground running essentially. And that's kind of exciting because he was kind of he was an underrated pull, I think. Beating out Florida State for his services was a really big deal. And it's just another one of those Mike Reed evaluations that I think is going to pay dividends. So, Ashton Hampton at that size, I think is really good. I mean, that's kind of where you want your nickel to be. And he still, I mean, he can run. So that makes it, or he makes him a lot more intriguing as far as, a true freshman that could, step in and contribute right away in that DB room.
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. All right. Heaven Brown Schuler from 290 up to 312 pounds. So putting on some good weight there. Good for the defensive tackle room. Other guys from that defensive tackle room. What's I reading about?
I know Vic Burley is up to 330, I think, or something like that. He was like, or
yeah, Trey Williams up to 314. Where's Vic Burley at? Vic Burley's up to 332.
Don't know if I love that, to be honest. That if we're going to talk about ones that like weigh-ins that I wasn't excited about, Vic Burley is kind of one of them. They've talked about kind of they want to get him on the field, but he's kind of a work in progress because he's so behind. He got so behind from the ACL tear. So maybe they do want him at that weight. Maybe it's good weight, because I didn't get a chance to see him. But he is a guy that I'm extremely high on, and as far as the long-term future of this defensive line room. I mean, he was a 5-star, so that's not saying much, but that was kind of one of the ones where I was like, oh wow, I didn't expect him to balloon that much. I didn't think he needed to gain weight. And Peter Woods also gained weight, which is like, okay, well, he's definitely going to play inside a lot, even though he's moving out to edge. Like you're still going to have a lot of utility for him in the interior. So
yeah, I mean, Peter Woods, he's up to 319. But reading some of the media notes and the media members seeing him in practice, they're like, that dude doesn't look 300 pounds. Like, so clearly from a body composition standpoint, he's carrying it very well. According to them, he's very lean. So doesn't look like he's carrying too much there. So, I mean, how he does it, I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, you got to. I mean, it's crazy how these athletes carry this weight sometimes. I mean, you look at a guy like Adam Randall, like at 231, and you're like, but it's like all muscle. He's like 4%.
Right, yeah.
Body
Dude, like DK Metcalf over here.
Yeah.
Solid muscle. A lot of the offensive linemen went down in weight, not by much, anywhere from 5 to 8 pounds or so, but most of the guys that you would project to be starting offensive linemen this season went down in weight. So our Ryan Lithicum, I think, is a key piece for the offensive line this year, right? He's down to 302. Most of the other ones went down as well. Let's see. I'm trying to get their weights. Peyton Page down to 307. Shout out to Peyton Page. I mean,
that was pretty incredible. I mean, it was cool to see him
get
that.
That dude was,
he was what, almost 400 pounds at one point.
He was 400 pounds at one time, yeah, when he was at Clemson. Nice 307. So shout out to him. That's putting in the work, man. That's not easy.
I mean, and he's a guy that's going to be in that rotation, and he's going to be expected to take a bigger role. So that's massive. And it's a testament to, again, testament to the strength staff and Peyton and his work ethic as far as, just getting his body, because, now he's one of the senior guys in the room with Tyler Davis gone, Rukaroro gone. I mean, this is, he's the old guy now. Him and Trey
Right.
Williams, like in Demonte Capehart, they're the veterans of the group. So they got to lead by example, and that's pretty. That was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Blake Miller up to 314. Ronan O'Connell down to 306. Marcus Tate up or down to 316. Excuse me. Tristan Lay down to 309. Champ Pendergrass up to 297. Walker Parks down to 304. Dietrich Pennington up to 355. So big group of offensive linemen there, obviously changing their bodies.
Yeah, and Dietrich Pennington is a guy that another guy you're kind of really interested, because it's just he's a guy that they've talked about so many times, in multiple off seasons, about getting his body right. Him going up in weight, they didn't seem to be concerned about it. They seemed to say that it was good weight. So that's what you hope for, at least. So it would be cool if he could factor into the depth in rotation, at some point this year. But I'm really intrigued about that, because it's like, where do you slot him? Because especially when the rest of the guys are so low at this point along the offensive line, and I think that was intentional. I felt like last year it wasn't that the guys we had weren't strong enough; it's that they were, some of them were so big they couldn't move their feet. That was one thing that really stood out about the offensive line play last year. And what they say, slow feet don't eat. And we just had a lot of guys that weren't very quick-footed in an offensive scheme that needs you to be quick-footed, especially when you're doing those gap schemes and counter, and when you have guys pulling. That's guys, you got to be able to move your feet. And we had issues in pass protection, on at tackle and on the interior at times, because guys weren't were slow. And that's something that Matt Luke is definitely been hitting the ground running with this group. And as far as, like, we're not going to be slow footed, we're not going to be we're not going to get beat to our spot, we're not going to lose our, I mean, you get the point. So I think that's kind of the mantra, and kind of the weigh-ins kind of reflect what they're going for this year. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that develops as we get further into fall camp.
Yeah, look, I'm really excited to see what this offensive line is going to be like, and just the cohesive unit that they're going to slowly become as the season moves on. The more I hear, and I guess that's a good transition to stop talking about the weigh-ins and then just transition right into our fall camp preview. And I think one of the common threads, I guess, that you heard, because we got to hear from Dabo Swinney, we got to hear from a bunch of different offensive linemen, Marcus Tate, Walker Parks, Blake Miller, Tristan Lay. We got to hear from a big portion of the offensive linemen, as well as Dabo Swinney, and really get a sense of how they're feeling coming out of summer, how they feel going into fall camp. And so before we get into the media notes and stuff like that, just off of those interviews and stuff, one of the things I wanted to highlight was just the vibe that I get from this offensive line. Now, I'm not sitting here today, what is it, the 2nd of August, 2024, saying that Clemson's offensive line is going to go out there and be some sort of, Michigan offensive line from last season 2.0, or, some sort of elite level top 5 offensive line in the country. But there's a recipe in there coming together that I think could, by season's end, become a very special group for this Clemson Tiger and be one of the pivotal keys for this offensive line group turning into something that we've always wanted it to be, right? We've always known that Clemson has the ability to recruit high-level offensive linemen. We have, but we just haven't been able to put it together as a cohesive unit a lot of the times, right? There's always been holes, but hearing the offensive linemen talk about Matt Luke, hearing them talking about them attacking their body composition, them being locked into how they look, to how they feel, to their athleticism, all the way to them talking about being in meetings with Matt Luke and how jacked up and excited he is, and how detail oriented he is. Oh, hey, your hand was slightly off. Oh, you were sitting a little high on that play. You were this, you were that, you were, just small little tweaks. That's the difference in, a 10-yard play and a tackle for loss, right? So little things like that, and just the things that I hear makes me be very optimistic, maybe cautiously optimistic about where this offensive line can end up at season's end.
No, I'm with you. And I mean, I get the same vibe. Like, with Matt Luke, you mentioned how detail oriented he is. That's one thing that I feel like, this group definitely needed. But not that Thomas Austin wasn't, about details. He was, from, everything I've been told. But like Matt Luke is almost Brent Venable's like obsession with the details. Like every single micrometer, like it matters. Like it's like if your hand placement is just a little bit off, he's going to call you out on it. If your feet are not where they're supposed to be by just an inch, he's going to call you out on it. And that's something that people who were at the first day of practice really observed when they were watching the offensive linemen go through drills. Matt Luke was very, very particular about how he wanted things to be done and where they needed to be. And I think that's kind of that's the level of attention to detail that I think this group needs, because sometimes doing the little things right goes a long way. And with this group, and we've talked about how the potential that this group has. This is how you're going to maximize that potential, is by doing the little things right, and that's what Matt Luke has repeatedly shown that he's all about. So that's exciting. Again, we're not saying that this group is going to come out and go push around Georgia on the 31st, but I do think that this, with what you have in the room, you have more than enough to be a very competitive and strong offensive line, especially down the line. So Matt Luke was really, really impressive from everything that I gathered, and just kind of he commanded. His presence was very, very felt throughout the day. So that was exciting to hear. You're muted.
Thank you. And then moving on to Dabo Swinney's interview, and he talked to the media for about 40 or so minutes, and he really focused on this team and getting back onto the grass, and just being excited to start a new chapter of Clemson football. And he seemed really excited about this group. He seemed like this group is really grown from a togetherness standpoint off the field this season. He talked a lot about player leadership on this team in the offseason. And he talked about seeing certain things that you see in really good teams from a player leadership standpoint. Everybody knows in college football specifically that the best teams are player-led. The most elite teams are player-led. Yes, the coaches set the standard. Yes, they, call the plays, and they set the practice schedule, and they lay out all the stuff. But the best teams are player-led, and it seemed from what he was talking about, this team got a lot closer off the field this summer, from taking internships together to working out. We talked about Cade working with receivers over in California. Cade and Moffa taking a missions trip down to Florida together. The offensive linemen all talking about hanging out this summer and really trying to become a closer group together and getting to know each other off the field. And it seems that there's more of a effort being made to become a cohesive unit, and I think that's important moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, we've talked about it ad nauseum. I mean, offensive line is a it's playing offensive line. It's a team sport within the team sport. Like it, it's not enough to put a bunch of put five individually great players together and have a really good offensive line. They have to be in communication with each other. They have to have camaraderie, and they have to have an understanding and internal synergy. To use one of those corporate the corporate buzzwords, synergy, but it definitely applies here. And so I think that this group is really, I mean, it's filled with a lot of different personalities, but I think they seem to gel well. And we have guys stepping up, I think, as far as a leadership standpoint. One guy that I felt like got a lot of attention, especially during drills, was Tristan Lay. He's emerged, like they've talked about how he's emerged as one of the leaders of this group. I mean, and that's really exciting to hear as he's going into his senior year. So I think that's really exciting to hear. I mean, from your presumed starting left tackle, because you're going to need him to play up to his 5-star billing, potential this year if you want to be the offense that we hope this group can be, and we believe this group can be. This group is, individually, I mean, you like all the pieces. I mean, Tristan Lay, I think, has a lot of potential. Marcus Tate, we've seen him play at a high level when he's healthy. Ryan Linthicum, I think we haven't seen him as much, but, I think he's done the work this offseason to be that guy at center. We just have to see it together on the field. Walker Parks, when he's healthy, all ACC type player. Blake Miller, same thing. When he's healthy, when he's playing at his best, all ACC type player. I think this group has the potential to be one of the top offensive lines, at least in the ACC. I'm not gonna. Again, I don't think this is a Joe Moore winning group or something like that. But they have the pieces there, and we've talked about how they've had the pieces, and we've needed the right guy in charge of that group to really get the most out of them.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think we got the right guy for the job, and hopefully we can hold on to him for a long time to come, because you can already see just the attitude shift within the room. Now, that's still got to play out on the field, and that's still got to come to fruition when it comes to, lining up on the field across from another opponent and, snapping the ball, and the play still got to be made. And none more important than August 31st when we kick off against the Georgia Bulldogs. It'll be very evident how quickly that offensive line is going to be able to turn things around. But regardless of what happens that day or even the rest of this season, I feel certain that we got the right guy in for the job, and we just have to give him time with the talent that's in the room, and he will absolutely turn it around. So exciting things, I think, to come for the Tigers on the offensive line. But let's talk about some of the media notes and the things that have coming out. Obviously, we've gone in depth on the weigh-in that happened on Wednesday, but Thursday was the first fall practice. We've practiced today as well. So let's talk about some of the things that have stood out to you that you've read in the media notes and some of the key things that because albeit abbreviated, it's really the only thing that we have to go off of. So what did the media members see, and what are kind of the standout things the first couple of days of fall practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a disservice if we didn't start with the quarterbacks. I think the thing that jumped out to me was just that Cade Klubnik looks the best he's looked from a physical standpoint. We talked about he's up to 210. It's a good 210. It's crazy. He's like only 18 pounds less than Phil Maffa. That doesn't sound right, but that's what he is. And that's a thing we've talked about with Cade, is that why it's been kind of not been what we hoped in the quarterback run game, because he just simply last year he wasn't big enough to take those hits as much as he would have been asked to. And so now I think you're at a point where he's a lot sturdier. You feel a little bit more comfortable with him, escaping the pocket or on zone reads and stuff of that nature, design quarterback runs. Because that's a part of Garrett Riley's offense. I mean, that's what he did at TCU with Max Duggan. They did that a ton because he was big enough, but he athletic enough to take those hits. So now Cade has always had the athleticism to do that, but he was 190. But so now he's at a point where you feel a little bit more comfortable taking those hits. And I read good things about him as far as his ball placement. Albeit they were throwing against air, so can't really take much from it. But he had some nice throws. Looked comfortable, looked confident. I think that's a really big thing. And that's kind of what we wanted to see. And it's not to take a quote from Susan Lloyd over on Twitter. Good follow on Twitter. She does a lot of photography in the Clemson area. But she was at the practice and she noted it was like that Cade, his confidence didn't seem to stem from the things he had done before, just from his high school days and all that. It wasn't that confident, that 5-star confidence. It was that confidence from a experience standpoint. Like he felt like it just looked a little bit different. So I thought that was a really good observation and something to point out. And then Chris Vezina, he's always looked the part, and he had some nice throws on the day as well. Trent Pierman as well. So I think I feel a little bit more comfortable with the quarterback room than I did, heading into spring when we were like, oh man, I felt we should have taken a transfer, at least for depth purposes. But I do feel a little bit better. I'm not totally sold on the depth, but at least you feel more comfortable that Cade will be able to go through the whole season healthy, and you feel a little bit better that Vezina or Trent Pierman can step in if things get a little bit hairy. But so I wanted that quarterbacks jumped out to me, and we have to talk about the freshman receivers, Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore, the newcomer. TJ got a lot of one-on-one time with Dabo. I thought that was cool. He loves working with the receivers, and TJ didn't get to flash a ton of his ability, but he looks again. We've talked about it ad nauseum with him. We knew that he was going to come in and he was ready to go. And Tyler Grisham talked about how he how he bugs him and he watches more film than everybody. And like Tyler will be out with his wife like for dinner or something like that, and he's getting a call from TJ asking to come watch some film. So that's exciting. That's really exciting. That TJ, not only is he's the 5-star that we hoped he'd be, but he has the 5-star mentality and work ethic to go with it. And I kind of felt that way. He comes from a great family, but it was good to kind of see him in action for a bit, even albeit just in limited drills and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Look, and you covered a lot of stuff there, and the quarterback situation for sure is definitely one that's been talked about a lot as far as Clemson goes, and Cade Klubnik and what kind of growth would he have, and how would he come into this fall camp? What would he look like? Is he going to look calm, cool, collected, comfortable? And it seems to be all of those things are happening for him, and maybe some things are starting to slow down mentally for him in the game, and maybe he's starting to trust what he's seeing a little bit more. And I think there's probably a couple reasons for that, right? One is, he's finally into a second year of the same offense, which is something that he's not been able to say for a while, right? He's no longer a first-year starter, so he's got that entire first year of starting and all the mistakes that he made and all the growing pains excuse me, that he went through to lean on and to take lessons from and to grow from. And I think one thing with Cade is he's the type of guy that he owns his mistakes, right? He's not going to make excuses. He's not going to blame other people. He's not going to blame, the receiver, the coaching staff, or the offensive line. It's going to be all on him. And I think that's important when it comes to a leader of a team and a leader of an offense, which is what they're going to look to him to be this season. So um, I think it's good that he's confident, and I think that he should be. And it shouldn't have anything to do with what he did at Westlake or how many state championships he won or how many consecutive games he won for Westlake, because that's got nothing to do with Clemson University, and that's got nothing to do with being an elite level college football quarterback. And that's his ultimate goal, right? I mean, Cade's goal is to be an elite level college football quarterback and to go play in the NFL one day. Obviously, that's his goal, and hopefully he reaches his goal. But from a Clemson standpoint, we just need him to operate within the system, be confident in the play call, be confident in his reads, and just let it fly. And one of the things that stood out to me is pretty much everybody that reported on it was, he was making the throws. He was making all the throws that he needed to, short game, over the shoulder, all the throws that were asked of him to make, he made pretty flawlessly in the first part of, fall camp that we've seen so far. So that's confident. That's a confidence builder. The quarterbacks behind him have seemed to take somewhat of a step forward as well. So that's always a good thing. You would expect that progression from Vizina. Obviously, being a couple years in now, he's got to start developing and being ready to step in if that if his number should be called this season. That's important. And then obviously the wide receiver room. Dabo talked about it in his interview, and some of the media members have talked about it. There's a deep wide receiver room here. There's 10 guys. There's 10 guys that are really good, honestly, and none other than some of these freshmen. And you see a Brian Wesco put on 12 pounds of muscle in the summer period, bulking up because he knows he needs to. And all the plays that we saw him make in spring ball, and I'm sure that's going to continue to translate through fall camp. And then you talk about TJ Moore and him coming in and being relentless in the film room, being relentless in trying to learn this offense. And that just speaks to the character of that kid, right? Because you don't always get that with some of these 5-star kids, right? Some of these 5-star kids come in, and unfortunately, sometimes they act pretty entitled, right? I'm a 5-star, I'm the best player, blah, 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 blah. But when you get these unique 5-star kids, like a TJ Moore, like a Brian West, who they come in and they just want to keep their head down and they want to work and they want to earn everything that they get, and they want to be relentless in their preparation and relentless in how they take care of their body and in the film room and taking every rep seriously in practice. It's a difference maker, especially when you marry that with the talent that these dudes already have. It sets up for a pretty special situation. So shout out to them. Look forward to how this receiver room's going to shake out.
Yeah, man. I'm the sky's the limit for those two. We've talked about it. Some other guys, Adam Randall definitely stood out at 231, but people were like, oh, did he get, did he put on some bad weight? But no, I mean, he looked extremely explosive out of his breaks during drills. Really, we know what he looks like, physically, and what the talent, the athletic profile tells you. And we've talked about how big of a wild card he is for this wide receiver room, because if he does, finally grow into his own, then the sky, it opens up everything for everybody else, whether it be Antonio Williams or Tyler Brown or Troy Stellato or you name the receiver. It just opens everything else up to have that true outside threat. And it takes a lot of pressure off of your true freshmen as well, who, we've talked about how uber talented they are, but now you're not relying on them to, be those big play guys and step into a huge role in year one, and it gives them time to ease themselves in and be contributors, but not have to be, the focal point of the passing game. And so, we've talked about that. So Adam Randall, he's looked the part in the little bit we've seen. Of course, it's still okay. Well, you got to show us when the lights are on, when we put on the pads, and because we've heard how great you are in practice before, but you have to. Now it's time. You're off the ACL injury. You had the hand injury last year. You're healthy now. It's this is the year you got to make a big jump, and I think he definitely knows that, especially with the guys behind him, the talent behind him that's really hungry. So and he's one of the older guys in the room too. So that's a big part of it as well, and growing as a leader is a big thing too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Any other fall camp intel notes you want to do? Highlight any other things that really stood out to you that you want to hit on?
Just the defensive line. We've talked about it. They just continue to do their thing. They look extremely impressive. That whole room does. The defensive tackles especially. They look the part. And we didn't get to see too much of them, in drills or they didn't do any one-on-one drills or anything like that. They in the defensive back room, a couple of guys got shout outs. I wanted to point out Corian Gibson, the true freshman cornerback out of Texas, a guy we were extremely high on when he committed. Obviously he tore his ACL, last season, in his senior year. So he didn't get to finish, and he just kind of, I think because of that, he kind of flew under the radar a little bit. As he was recovering, I think people just, we knew how talented he was, but he just kind of fell out of the conversation because he wasn't practicing. But now he's recovered, and he looks the part, and he's another guy. I already mentioned Ashton Hampton earlier in the show. He looks the part as well. I think they really did hit it out of the park with this defensive back room too, as far as the freshman class. So shout out to Corian Gibson, and he looked good. Oh, and the offensive. We've talked about what the offensive line is going to look like. In the limited drills that they did, one of the recurring lineups was that lineup of Tristan Lay, Marcus Tate, Ryan Linthicum, Walker Parks, and Blake Miller. They got a lot of reps together. It seems like that's the preliminary group that I think they're planning on starting, and kind of who we expected. So I wanted to point that out as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Looking forward to. I don't know. I like all the early notes that we've gotten out of fall camp so far, but I'm really looking forward to get to that first scrimmage that they're going to do, and really kind of see as it settles in, and they get a little bit more with the pads, get a little bit more physical, and just kind of let's see where everybody ends up, right? Like let's see what receivers are gonna pull ahead and kind of take those starter snaps. I know they're gonna rotate a lot of guys in. Same thing with the offensive line. Let's see what five guys are really going to truly separate themselves as those five guys that you talk about getting the best five on the field. Who are those guys? As we go along, that's kind of my big questions, and let's identify those five guys. Who are going to be the best five guys? Who are going to be, the best 3 to 4 wide receivers that we're going to be putting on the field most consistently? And same thing with the defensive backfield and that defensive line front. Who are going to be those consistent players, right? And then what's those rotations look like outside of them? And I think that's what fall camp's going to be really pivotal for. Is we got a ton of guys specifically in that that secondary that you're talking about. That there's so much talent there, and there's some talent returning. And you think about a Tyler Venables and an R.J. Mickens and guys like that are returning, very veteran guys, and then you're mixing them with a lot of young talent and guys that got a lot of experience last year due to injuries and due to just out of necessity about things that happen. And it's going to be, I think, a good blend of veteran leadership and then, young, talented guys that did get a lot of playing time last year. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch. I do think this defense is setting up to be a really good defense this year. I feel extremely good about the tackle position. Um, I feel much better now about the defensive edge position than I did probably heading into spring practice. I know that was a point of concern for probably both of us, but I'm definitely feeling better about that today than I did before, just because of the move of Peter Woods out there, which I don't think either of us were a true fan of initially. Now we're kind of a little bit more okay with the move. And then him opposite TJ Parker. And then just hearing Dabo and Chris Rump and them talk about the guys and the growth behind them, right? And AJ Hoffler, 6'4" guy. You see he's up to, 255 now, really coming into his body, right? You see a Darian Mayo. He's at like 266. I mean, the dude's just massive, dude. Like, can't wait to see that dude get on the field, right? I mean, coming as a true freshman, that is going to be insane. This dude is 266. He's going to be a problem, and I think he probably carves out a role for himself. And then you think about a Jaheim Lawson, a guy that was like, super light and kind of a pass rush specialist type guy, and now he's up into the 250 range, right? So he's changed his body, to a point where he can really compete on all downs as well. So it's really exciting to see some of those young guys starting to step up. I think some of the new voices and the new coaches on the staff are starting to help, and I think that's. I think it's important, man. I think it's gonna be really interesting to watch as the spring goes on. And the last thing that I kind of wanted to hit on before we hop out of here, Jordan, is the change with the coaching staff, right? The new rule in college football where all of these interns and stuff can now do on the field coaching. How much of an impact do you think that has on the Clemson Tigers? We have seen the changes that they have made already. They're pretty much pairing up all these interns with each individual coach. You got linebacker interns and defensive line interns and safety interns and cornerback interns and so on and so forth all over the field. I know one of a fan favorite, certain linebacker, threw his name in the hat, and Dabo Swinney graciously accepted him as an unpaid intern, and that is none other than Ben Boulware. So, what kind of impact do you think things like that are going to have on this Clemson football team, and then just the coaching staff as a whole?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think it's massive, and I think for a program like Clemson, I mean, with how unique Dabo has cultivated, this culture. The Clemson family thing is not just a mantra or anything like that. It's something that he's been carefully crafting and cultivating over the course of his 15, 16-year coaching career. And I think with this new rule, I think it gives him the opportunity to kind of play into that. And bringing back Ben Boulware as an unpaid intern is just another example. I mean, he's going to be able to get his guys and former players and to opportunities, and I think it gives them opportunities in a safe kind of low risk environment. Like, it's not like giving them big time coordinator or position coach roles like right out the bat. It gives them the opportunity to get experience in the coaching realm, and maybe they go off and do other things and kind of build their own resume. Like, I can see a world where things play out like that for some guys on the support staff. So I think from that aspect, it's probably something that Dabo was thrilled about, because it gives him the opportunity to give his guys opportunities without having to do the Brandon Streeter, like going the Brandon Streeter route, promoting him to offensive coordinator, and guys like that, where it's like, okay, we're putting you in a position you've never really been before, and we're going to see if you can do it. and that's definitely hurt Clemson over the past 4 years. So now you get that opportunity to give your guys chances without, you know, risking that much, and then also, it's just it gives you the opportunity to also get more minds that experience in the room. I mean, you saw what he's already done, bringing in Lorenzo Ward. He's brought in guys like Terry Bowden in the past. It's going to give him the opportunity to get more minds with a coaching experience in the building, and give them hands on with the players, and it allows him to get more voices in the room without putting them in super high positions, or you have to let somebody go. So, Dabo is uniquely primed to take advantage of this rule for those reasons. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, seeing Ben Boulware out there was really funny, but really fun as well. Dabo said he was a terrible fan or a crappy fan, but he'll be a great coach. I thought that was funny because Ben has certainly been critical of the direction the program has headed the past 3 or 4 years. I remember I listened to him go on that huge rant on the Roar like last season. I think when they were like, I think this might have been right before the Notre Dame game, or it might have been around the Tyler from Spartanburg call. I can't remember. It was sometime in that time period, but that kind of reminded me of that, and the fact that Dabo probably heard about it, and this is probably what he was referencing. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, no, guarantee you Dabo heard it for sure, no doubt about that. But I just think it's funny. Ben Boulware was just out there being a fan like the rest of us, and voicing frustration, and that's what fans do. So I think it is funny that Dabo referenced that and kind of poked fun at old Ben Boulware there a little bit. But I think it's already evident that Clemson's going to take a huge advantage of this new rule by the NCAA and really have the maximum amount of people in the room, and just sharing responsibilities and taking some of the load off of those paid coaches, the guys that you need focused on certain things, and some of the more mundane, more ancillary type jobs that need to be done that normally they have to take care of. Now they don't have to take care of, and now suddenly they can focus a lot more on the things that need greater attention. And I think it's going to be a key thing as far as not only devoting the proper time to what they really need to be focused on, but also that work-life balance, that that culture that Clemson tries to cultivate, and Dabo Swinney tries to cultivate, to make it a very enjoyable place to work and an enjoyable place to live, and all of those things. So I think it's great that now we have all these kind of unpaid interns, and all this stuff that is really going to help the team out, and they can coach on the field, right? And they can do everything like a regular coach can do. They're just not being paid. They're just kind of getting their feet wet in the coaching world and seeing if it's for them, and seeing if it's something they want to pursue long term, or if they don't. So I think it's a unique way for giving guys opportunities, like you talked about, some opportunities that may have been given in the past that may have hurt Clemson. That probably definitely did hurt Clemson, if we're being honest. But now you don't have to have all that risk, right? You can just kind of give them an opportunity here, and then if it takes off, it takes off. If it doesn't, it doesn't. No harm, no foul, right? So I think that's excuse me, cannot stop coughing.
Yeah, man, I'm praying for you, buddy, because I know it's that. When you told me what you were dealing with, I was like, dang. So, and it's definitely not a normal show. We've been talking about the past, like, however many weeks about, okay, we're finally going to settle in, and we're not, we're gonna have normal shows, and we're not gonna have any quirks. And then obviously you're sick, and then I'm joining like 15 minutes late because my phone won't work, and not at home. So it's like that's that's
Yeah.
that's kind of the charm of this show, I think. So
It is, man. Look, hey, we do the best we can, and even when it's not perfect, we still bring you guys something that's, I hope, watchable and digestible, and something that you guys still want to be a part of. I think we're going to wrap it up here in a couple minutes. I'll maybe take a couple of your questions, so I'll give you a couple minutes to ask some questions. But this cough is starting to get the best of me, guys, so I need to get up out of here before all you guys are watching is a 5-minute reel of me just trying to hack up my right lung. So
yeah, we don't need this. Yeah, we don't need to see that. That might actually, like, I don't want you to die on camera. That might go against YouTube's terms of services. So let's
yeah,
try
definitely
to
will.
avoid that.
It definitely will. So I'll wait for a few questions to get in here, and we'll take those, and then we'll hop up out of here, Jordan. Before I take those questions, I just want to thank every single person for popping in here tonight. We got 33 people in the live chat. If you have not already, please go ahead and hit that like button for us. Consider subscribing. Me and Jordan do the All In Show right here every Friday at 5:30 p.m. Stay tuned, guys. Some pretty big announcements coming. We got some guests planned in the near future to come on the show. A few big guests that are going to come on the show, and they're going to help us preview some things and some games, and kind of preview the season and help us out. And I hope you guys are looking forward to that. It's something we've been working on for a little bit now, and I think it's coming together. So look forward to, in the next few weeks, kind of letting you guys know when that's going to be, and we'll make the announcements when the time is right. But look for a few big guests and a few kind of special shows coming out here in the next couple weeks as we lead up to the kickoff of the 2024 season. Will is in here, our resident Notre Dame fan. Thanks for being in here, buddy. He said, "Are y'all more confident in the receivers or special teams?"
That's a good question. I think I'm definitely. I mean, okay. Well, I had an answer, but then when I gave it some thought, because special teams is more than just kicking and punting, returning and all of that. So we still, I think the fact that we still don't really know about kicker kind of makes it, a little bit of a, where it's kind of an incomplete right now as far as how I feel about the special teams, because kicking was such a big reason why they struggled. Well, it wasn't the only, certainly was far from the only reason, but it was a big reason for why they struggled last year. I think it's got to be the receivers. I just think, you have more proven commodities. I mean, I've talked about Antonio Williams, how high I am on him. Tyler Brown, obviously true freshman, All-American last year. Talked about the freshman wide receivers that are coming in, the return of experienced guys in Adam Randall and Troy Stellato. You get Cole Turner back from injury. Like, I think there's a lot more there. And then you still, and you guys, and then we haven't talked about Noble Johnson and Ronan Hannafin a bunch, but I'm interested to see how they progress in fall as well. So, yeah, I'm really excited about this receiver room. I put out a tweet yesterday. I was like, I'm ready to be hurt again. But I'm super bullish about the wide receiver room. So, I mean, I think that's got to be my answer.
All right, next question from Tiggs here. Has Robert Gunn improved any? Any word on Robert Gunn, early returns from fall camp, Jordan?
I didn't get I believe he made most of his field goals yesterday. On the first day. I didn't hear anything specifically about him. I hope he has. Nolan Hooser, I heard, did not have a great day. So that was something to kind of, he kind of struggled beyond 30. So that's not great. But, as far as Robert Gunn is concerned, I mean, I think right now it seems like he has a leg up. So I think that's about all I know as far as that's concerned. I believe that he's in a better headspace because I think last year he dealt with some things that affected him mentally, during games that, I think he's worked through in the off season, but, time will tell. We didn't, you didn't bring anybody out of the portal or anything like that. You brought in the true freshman, number one or number two kicker, but you don't know until you see it at this point, and they don't really, when when these practice reports come out and stuff, like they don't really spend a whole lot of time talking about the kickers, and for good reason. There are more pertinent position groups to talk about, but it's
Jay said Gunn was 4 of 5 today, and Huser was 5 of 5 today. Apparently, Gunn struggled yesterday though, so we'll see. We'll see how they shape up. One of them has to take that next step and become that consistent guy. I mean, that's really gonna be what goes into the decision of who's going to run out there first. It's going to be the guy that becomes more consistent at putting it through the uprights. All right, last two questions I'm going to take here, and then we're going to get out of here, Jordan. Do y'all think Brown's usage will increase after a good freshman year or decrease with all the receivers healthy?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question. I think the only answer is a decrease in usage, but I do think that I think when he gets opportunities, they will be. I mean, I think he's still going to get plenty of opportunities, but I think because you get Cole Turner back and Troy Salato's healthy, and you hope Adam Randall's healthy. Like I think they're going to want to get them on the field and get them opportunities as well. And with Antonio, and of course Antonio Williams, being healthy, like I think his usage can only go down. There's only so many targets, and I don't expect Cade to throw the ball as much as he did last year. Because I think that's one thing that people don't realize is Cade had more pass attempts than anybody in the ACC last year. Like that, he threw the ball entirely too much. That's not what Garrett Riley's offense is supposed to be. So, as many targets as Tyler Brown got last year, a lot of that. I mean, of course, it was him being good. It was also, they threw the ball a ton, and they ran a lot of plays, and that was not really what they were expecting coming into the year. So, yeah, I mean, usage-wise, it's going to go down, but I do think that when he gets his opportunity, like the explosive, like, some of the more advanced metrics, like explosive play rate and stuff like that, I do think he's going to factor into that a ton, and he's still going to get his fair share of opportunities because he's too good not to play. He's just he showed out for a reason, not just because guys were hurt. It's because he came in as a summer enrollee and was already one of your best. So I mean, I think he's going to have assuming he stays healthy, I think he'll be able to build on his freshman campaign.
Absolutely. All right, last question here. And then we're going to get out of here for tonight. Thank you guys so much for being here. Do you think Cade will play a larger part in the run game this year? Can he be that run threat in the red zone?
Yeah, that was something that they were trying to when they were talking to Garrett Riley, the media. They talked about that with him a little bit during media days last week. That was something they had mentioned. I think so, especially since you don't really have a 1A, 1B situation at running back. Yeah, I think you have your RB1 and there's a gap, no matter who you put there. I think Cade is going to factor in more, and we've talked about his weight gain and all that. I think that's going to make the coaching staff and Garrett Riley more comfortable putting him in those situations, and I think that's going to open things up because things were working well, not just. I mean, throughout Clemson's run, and even when DJ was the quarterback, when the quarterback run game was successful, a lot of other aspects of the offense were successful. Even in 2022, when DJ was running the ball well, the offense looked a lot more comfortable, and teams weren't teeing off on them and on the offensive line, and it opened things up for Will Shipley and Phil Maffa. As much as the 2022 offense was frustrating at times, that was one thing that they did really, really well. And they were able to generate a really consistent run game because of that. And if Cade can be that level, not used in the same way as DJ, he's not going to be a battering ram. He's not that big, but he's gonna offer. It's gonna be more like what it was the run game was under like Deshaun Watson, like where you get him on draws and get him to beat an edge to the outside because he does have the speed to do that, like that kind of sort of thing. But then he's able to take hits when necessary. So I think I think I would be surprised if he didn't factor into the run game more than he did last year.
I agree. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for the show tonight. I know it's somewhat of an abbreviated show, but I'm honestly not feeling well at all, feeling worse and worse. So I'm going to go lay down. Jordan's got stuff to do. Obviously, he's got to get to where he needs to go. So, but we still wanted to make a point to come on here and talk a little bit about the stuff coming out, early returns on fall camp, early intel on fall camp. So that's kind of what we did. Talked a little bit of weigh-ins, talked about the interviews we heard, and then some of the media notes. Appreciate you guys. Get well soon stuff in the chat. Thank you so much, Tiggs. Appreciate that, man. But guys, make sure you show up next week. We'll be right back here, 5:30. And then look for our announcements on our special shows. We got quite a few guests that are going to be coming on throughout the next couple of weeks, leading into that big Georgia matchup, the kickoff of the 2024 season, August 31st. So our next few shows will be all geared towards previewing the 2024 season. And then after that, we'll kind of have some guests come on, help us preview certain games or preview the season as a whole. So,
sorry, not to keep us on long. One last thing. In a couple of minutes, Clemson. I expect Clemson to land a commitment for the 2026 class. So y'all, stay tuned for that. And we'll talk about that on the show next week. So you'll see it when it comes out. But I expect that to be announced here shortly.
Awesome. Another big get for the 2026 class. So shout out to all of you guys for showing up. Really do appreciate every single one of you that come in here and support the show every single week. Again, share the show with your friends, anybody that likes college football. And we will see you guys in the next one. Until then, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He's Jordan Bowman. Go Tigers.
Later, y'all.